Giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power, Yahweh. Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachakodash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of the great millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, and wherever you may be, and wherever you may be, to you I say Shalom, Yasharallah, Shalom. All right, we're back into the book of Genesis, the 49th chapter, as we're, pretty much going through a whole series of chapters and history that deals with us as a people, who we are. As you often, if you watch me at camp, you hear me quote that scripture every single camp. But as it says in the book of Romans, chapter 8, the Spirit bear witness with our spirit that we are the sons of the living power. Okay, is the Spirit, that's quickened us, to this understanding, which also comes with the proper teachers, and it says the same thing in the book of Titus. I want to say it's Titus 3, if I'm correct, but to give not heed to endless genealogies. All right. So within the scriptures, we have everything we need to know who we are and to identify ourselves according to the scriptures, and that's what we're doing with these series here. All right. So we're going to start Genesis 49:1. Verse 2 says, and Jacob being our forefather, which for those of you that may not know, Jacob's name is Jacob in the Hebrew. Our language is the Paleo Hebrew. Paleo meaning ancient Hebrew, the first language on the earth. When you go back to Genesis, I think it's 10 or 11. Okay, and then the Lord can find the languages. All right, the language that continued down in our particular lineage was the Hebrew, which was the language that was spoken by everyone at one point. So yeah, Jacob, whose name in the Hebrew is Jacob, which means supplanter, called unto his sons, 12 patriarchs, and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together, and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel, your father. Now, the word days here in the Hebrew is Yawam. Okay, we'll just pull it up real quick. All right, there it is right there, Yawam. Okay, notice how it says day, time, year. All right, day as opposed to night. All right, but as it says as a division of time, and it also says time period general. Okay, and those are pretty much the main ones there. All right, but more importantly, okay, so the word for day in the Hebrew is Yawam. We want to get the word last with his Acharyath. Okay, here we go. All right, Acharyath. All right. And it says what? After a part in issue event. But the key thing here is latter time, prophetic for future time. And that's exactly what we just read. Okay. Jacob speaking about really what he was saying to us in Genesis 49 was not to the 12 patriarchs. It is to, I guess I said us, but to them, to the 12 patriarchs. He wasn't speaking about things that the 12 patriarchs would go through. He was speaking about things, pertaining to the sons and daughters that will come from the 12 patriarchs. All right. So that's why it says latter time, prophetic for future time. Okay. And so today we're dealing with, the tribe of Naphtali. So let me see here. All right. Yep. Here we go. Genesis 49:21, Naphtali, and in the Hebrew, Naphtali. Okay. Yep. Naphtali. Okay, which means wrestling. The sixth son of Jacob, and the second by Bilhah, because Jacob. You go into Jacob's history. He worked for the one daughter, who was as we go to find out through the account, is the younger daughter. And that's how he pretty much got he got supplanted. He got Yaquabbed because he was given the older daughter. And he was basically tricked. But he worked for the younger daughter, got the older daughter. Then he worked again to actually get the younger daughter, the one that he wanted. And he pretty much fulfilled. I think it was like 21 years, if I'm correct. I forget exactly. I might be wrong, but the point I'm making is Jacob had two women. They were actually sisters. Which you can't have sisters and mothers and say at the same time. This is just how the Lord played that, part of the story out. but he had the two sisters, and they were given the two handmaids, Zilpah and Bilhah. All right. So, and it says here, the sixth son of Jacob, and the second by Bilhah, the handmaid of Rachel. Okay. So Rachel was one of the daughters. Bilhah was her handmaiden. Okay. And then you had the other two. Okay. The other sister, Leah, and Zilpah was her handmaid. So the tribe descended from Naphtali. So we don't need all that. All right. So, all right, there you go. Naphtali. All right. The tribe of Naphtali, meaning wrestling. And these are the so-called Argentinians to Chileans. All right. The so-called Argentinians to Chileans. So Genesis 49:21 again. Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly words. All right. Now, I want to get the word for hind, which is ayala. So doe, a deer, or a hind, which I think, if I'm correct, I think doe is a female deer. I don't think it's the baby deer. I think it's the female deer. Doe, they're not even giving it to us in regular. They're going deep with it. Yeah. As a matter of fact, yeah, because that song, doe, a deer, a female deer. So, which is not important. I was just thinking, but yeah, doe, deer, hind. All right. So the word for ayala is doe or deer or hind. Well, the word is hind, but doe or deer. And the word, when you go into the word loose, the word is shalah. All right, which means to send away, let go, stretch out. All right, and pretty much, most of these are pretty much the same there. A few of them different. All right, so ayala, or the word hind being ayala in the Hebrew, meaning doe or deer, and the word loose in the Hebrew being shalah, which means to send away, to stretch out or to let go. Because, just like some of the other tribes, they were very nomadic. That's why it says Naphtali is like a hind let loose. And when maybe I can't say we've all seen deer, but if you've seen deer, maybe you watch it on TV, you see just how they move. Okay, the little rustle of a noise, they're at attention. Now, if they feel unsafe, they get out of there. And when you see how deers move, they can really leap. They can move out real quickly. Okay, so Naphtali is a hind let loose, because they were also very nomadic people, just like some of the other tribes. And it says he gives goodly words, or he giveth goodly words, and pretty much is dealing with those the Spaniards, as we've seen that has become a common thing, dealing with the tribes. All right, the Spaniards. Okay, basically they were Edomites. And let me see here. I'm going to I'll pull this up here. I want to grab here we'll type something in. Mapuche. Yep, the Mapuche versus the Spanish. So, as a matter of fact, I think I'll have it here. Yeah, let's just go over here, because I want to speak about this. Well, let's get this real quick, because we're going to go into that. It's the same thing we have here. So the Mapuche versus Spanish conflict, known as the Arauco War, was a centuries-long struggle where the resilient Mapuche people fiercely resisted Spanish colonization in modern-day Chile, employing guerrilla warfare. Right, that was something that was known for the natives to do, and Esau called it unconventional warfare. But what it was, they were pretty much, the tribes were whipping their asses. Okay, and then they knew their land, their territory, and things. So it says employing guerrilla warfare. There you go, right there. Utilizing terrain and adapting tactics, like adopting horses to hold off European conquest far longer than the other indigenous groups, even forcing the Spanish to negotiate treaties, though they were eventually subjugated by the Chilean state in the late 19th century. Now, we could also pull up, the Argentinians versus the Spanish, but I want to pull up an ancient Israel map, just to show you their land mass, according to the map of the tribes. Real quick, I guess this is the most universal one you ever see right here. It always comes up, no matter how many other maps come. This one always comes up, so we'll just grab this one. So yeah, Naphtali, as you see right here, because we've covered Gad. We've covered Reuben was the first one. We covered Reuben. We've covered Gad. We have not talked about Manasseh. But as far as Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh goes, because you notice Manasseh has an East Manasseh and a West Manasseh. It's called East and West because the Jordan River is between the two. There's territories on the east side and there's territories on the west side. Right, and these three tribes, Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh, are the only ones who had territory on the east of the Jordan, and everybody else, as you see, was on the west of the Jordan. Okay, and well, I guess with a portion of according to this map, a portion of Naphtali, but that's not really. I don't think that's a part of the Jordan, or maybe it is. I mean, it goes up, but you get the point there. And this is Naphtali's land. I think the last tribe we dealt with was Asher. If I'm correct, that was Asher, last tribe that we dealt with. The Colombians, the Uruguay, tomato. All right, the so-called Brazilians. Okay, so now we have Naphtali. There's their land right there. Naphtali, once again, being the Argentinians to Chileans. Okay, as a matter of fact, since we are here in our maps and things, let's also grab Argentina and Chile. Or maybe I should just put South America, but I guess we're already writing this in now. I actually may have to go back if they don't give us a map here and just put a map of South America, maybe. Okay. Oh, perfect. There you go. Argentinians to Chileans. All right. So you see where that is in South America. Let's pull this up. Chile, Argentina. All right. Capital of Argentina, Buenos Aires. Excuse me. I don't know what the capital of Chile is. Okay. All right. So just getting a look at where this is on the map. South America. Okay. That's another good, decent map there. All right. So yeah, so the Argentinians, Chileans, both of their main native languages is Spanish, obviously because of what the Spanish people, these Edomites, the Spanish speaking Edomites. All right. So yeah, let's jump over here to, let me find my other page here. Yep, we're gonna talk about this a little bit. I'm going to this Araco War. I'm not sure if I pronounced it right, but anyways, let's read a bit about this. So the Araco War was a long-running conflict between colonial Spaniards and the Mapuche people. Mostly fought in the Araucanía region of Chile. The conflict began at first as a reaction to the Spanish conquerors attempting to establish cities and force Mapuches into servitude. You see the time period here, 1536 to 1656. All right, location Araucanía, which is the same map that we just saw. If I can click it real quick. Okay, so it's not even a good map. All right, so let's get to where we want to go. And we're going to click up the wiki. All right, and talk about this a little bit. So the Araco War, part of the Spanish colonization of the Americas. So the Araco War was a long-running conflict between colonial Spaniards, all right, Edomites, and the Mapuche people, which are, part of who we're talking about right now. Mostly fought in the Araucanía region of Chile. The conflict began at first as a reaction to the Spanish conquerors, Spanish conquerors attempting to establish cities and force Mapuches into servitude. It subsequently evolved over time into phases comprising drawn-out sieges, slave hunting expeditions, we actually might pull that up, pillaging raids, punitive expeditions, and renewed Spanish attempts to secure lost territories. Abduction of women and war rape was common on both sides. All right, so let's go into slave hunting expeditions. Let's pull it up. So slave raiding is a military raid for the purpose of capturing people and bringing them from the raid area to serve as slaves. Once seen as a normal part of warfare, it is nowadays widely considered a war crime. Slave raiding has occurred since antiquity. Some of the earliest surviving written records of slave raiding come from Sumer in present-day Iraq, over there near ancient Babylonia. Kidnapping and prisoners of war were the most common sources of African slaves, although indentured servitude or punishment also resulted in slavery. Right? The many alternative methods of obtaining human beings to work in indentured or other involuntary conditions, as well as technological and cultural changes, have made slave raiding rarer. As this picture says, Arab slave raid on Congolese village as witnessed by David Livingston. Slave raiding was a large and lucrative trade on the coast of Africa, in Europe, Mesoamerica, and in medieval Asia. The Crimean Nogai slave raids in Eastern Europe provided some 2 or 3 million slaves to the Ottoman Empire via the Crimean slave trade over the course of 4 centuries. All right, so we're not really gonna read too far into this. All right, pillaging raids. All right. Looting is the act of stealing or the taking of goods by force, typically in the midst of a military, political, or other social crisis, such as war, natural disasters, where law and civil enforcement are temporarily ineffective, or rioting. The proceeds of all these activities can be described as booty, loot, plunder, spoils, or pillage. All right, throughout history, the practice of war, looting was often considered a customary right of victorious armies until the development of modern international humanitarian law. All right. Punitive expeditions. A punitive expedition is a military journey undertaken to punish a political entity or any group of people outside the borders of the punishing state or union. It is usually undertaken in response to perceived disobedient or morally wrong behavior by miscreants as revenge or corrective action, or to apply strong diplomatic pressure without a formal declaration of war. Example given: a surgical strike. In the 19th century, punitive expeditions were used more commonly as pretext for colonial adventures that resulted in annexations, regime changes, or changes in policies of the affected state to favor one or more colonial powers. All right. So going back to the Arauco War, the Spaniards penetrated into Mapuche territory during the conquest of Chile until the Battle of Curalaba in 1598. All right. This Arauco War was the 1536, I think. It says to the Battle of Curalaba in 1598, and the following destruction of the 7 cities led to the establishment of a clear frontier between the Spanish domains and the land of the independent Mapuche. From the 17th to the late 18th century, a series of parliaments were held between royal governors and Mapuche Loncos, and the war devolved to sporadic pillaging carried out by both sides. In the words of Philip II, this conflict cost a larger number of Spanish lives in the New World, which is why it became known as the Flandes Indiano, or Indian Flanders, in reference to the 80 Years' War. All right, so causes of its origin and length. Initially, the key area of conflict that the Spanish attempted to secure south of Bio River, or Bio River, were the valleys around Cordillera de Nahuelbuta. The Spanish designs for this region was to exploit the placer deposits of gold. There you go. That's because that was the main goal of these Spaniards, to find gold wherever they could find gold. They would often torture, put to death, or make servitude, make slaves. There was just horrific acts behind gold itself. Okay, well, that was their main goal, and they were coming under the guise of Christianity and Jesus and the 12 apostles. All right, so it's just a bunch of devils that came from across the sea. Okay, but it was all to fulfill prophecy ultimately. Scripture saying Jeremiah, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together. That happened all over here, mainly over here, in these shores over here, South Central and Northern America. Okay, you could probably include Canada because you had the Northern, American, the so-called Native American Indians also in Canada, but mostly speaking about America, in the West Indies and South America, Mesoamerica, okay? Because eventually the Southern Kingdom was brought over here in the slave trade. So now you have Northern and Southern Kingdom in one place under the same people, facing the same, kind of persecution and slavery and tortures and everything else and so on and so forth, right? So yeah, it says the Spanish designs for this region was to exploit the placer deposits of gold using, there you go right there, I didn't even read the rest of it, but it says right here, see, I could have kept reading. Gold using Mapuche slave labor from the densely populated nearby valleys. To serve the Spanish in gold mining was a daily activity that killed many Mapuches. Lacking a tradition of forced labor like the Andean Maida, the Mapuches largely refused to serve the Spanish, setting the stage for the conflict. It has been conjectured that gold mining was already occurring in Mapuche lands south of the Inca Empire, which that would be in Mesoamerica, because this is way south, in South America, prior to Spanish, which all those so-called northern tribes were kind of spread about in certain, all over, but there was certain area where certain tribes were together, and certain areas where certain tribes just lived, amongst themselves. I mean, because they were all tribes of the north, either way you look at it. But anyways, let's keep going. It says the Mapuche lands south of the Inca Empire prior to the Spanish arrival, and that this would have allowed the Spanish to rapidly identify places with gold, you see, because that was their goal. On the other hand, the Spanish in particular, those from Castile and Extremadura, came from an extremely violent society. According to Diego de Rosales, 17th century Mapuche chief, Leontor, would have explained that he preferred to die warring than in a bad peace. Die warring, die fighting, than in a bad peace, because this is what these Edomites were doing. They were coming over here, they make friends, then they turn around and kill. They make, peace, turn around and kill. They make treaties, turn around and kill. And some of those treaties were faulty anyways, because it was basically like, they really didn't know what they were getting into. For those that, went along with the treaties, they didn't know what the heck they were getting into. And then they took the same treaties and then put it across the board. So you had those that were that went with the treaty and those that weren't with the treaty. So they just dealt with the ones that were with the treaty and then put it across the board like, yeah, so they signed it, so all y'all with it. It's just a devil, man. Okay? You get into history about, the Trail of Tears, Louisiana Purchase. We just talked about the Iroquois. I think it was yesterday. And, then been moved to Oklahoma, and the far west was really a lesser land. The Seminoles that were in Florida, who were pushed out of there, okay, and just so much history, all right. And then you move down to Mesoamerica, history there. We talked about the Tenochtitlan, okay, the Night of Terrors. They came for gold. They almost got deleted, that initial time. Coming for gold. You go to the South America, it's the same thing, mining for gold, but also picking up on other resources and using us Israelites as their labor. All right. It says Jesuits sought to diminish hostilities and end the war altogether by converting Mapuches to the Christian faith. There you go. See, we just mentioned that. See, converting them to the Christian faith. And this happened back east, okay? The expulsion of the Jews, all right? Convert to Christianity or die. And some of us pretty much just lied and say, oh, we converted just so they wouldn't be killed or tortured or whatever the case may be. But then they would secretly still worship. You get it. It's all a bunch of history there. So it says Jesuits sought to diminish hostilities and end the war altogether by converting Mapuches to the Christian faith. They temporarily succeeded in enforcing the defensive war, 1612 to 1626 policy. So the defensive war policy. But their conversion attempts founded on Mapuche leaders' staunch defense of polygamy, which was unacceptable in Catholic faith. This insistence on polygamy has been explained as Mapuche chiefs valuing it as a way to establish more alliances through marriage than monogamous marriage allows. Polygamy may also have been valued as important population strategy in war times when the Mapuche male population was unstable. Yeah, because they will often kill, which is a natural thing with war, but they will often kill, the males, even if they were young or little boys. All right. Trying to see, because we don't have to go super deep into this stuff I've been reading myself. I just want to bring up the Iraq War there, basic, some little basic information there. It's usually some more stuff if you go down. Or I might be jumping through the categories already. The Battle of Tucapel. So I just wanted to bring up a little bit of stuff there, because you see how much history, information and stuff is here. Okay, so but I just wanted to bring that up real quick. The Iraq War of 1536, or what it says here, map of Araucania from the 18th century, showing much of the territory where the war was fought. All right, historiographic divergence 15. Yep. Araucania region and surrounding regions of the Captaincy General of Chile, present-day Chile. Spanish invasion of Araucania permanently reversed around 1600. Gradual Spanish reestablishment of rule south of Araucania, 1645-13. I mean, so you get the general point there. And here, there's another map, so it's showing you where the area is. So yeah, so just something, 1536 to 1656, Iraq War. The Mapuche people, which are, these people, today, which as we read, was mostly fought around the Chile area, but these Argentinians to Chileans, the tribe of Naphtali, okay, part of us Israelites. We can actually go over here to, where's my other book at? Let's back up. So yeah, Naphtali is a hind let loose, he giveth goodly words. Okay. And as we mentioned before, just like all those northern tribes, they would always try to make peace with these Edomites that were coming over here, these Spaniards. Okay. And then even if peace was made, the Spaniard would still, kill, destroy, burn houses, trap them in the houses, because they were mostly made out of straw. They will burn it while they're inside, and all kinds of, just crazy acts, man. Okay. But let me go to Deuteronomy 33. We can start wrapping it up, because the point was really made with that one verse, but I just wanted to bring out some extra little history there. And as you see, we could have kept reading. There's a lot there, but I just want to bring up just a small account. What am I looking for? Deuteronomy 33, and see if I can find the verse. I might have passed it. Here we go. Yep. Deuteronomy 33 and 23. And of Naphtali he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full with the blessing of the Lord Yahweh, possess thou the west and the south. And as you just saw, on the map, where Chile and Argentina is, right there, west of South America, and the furthest point south, I believe, is Argentina. So bam. Okay. So yeah, and just look at the world map, and it's pretty much self-explanatory for itself. Okay. So yeah, and that's pretty much it there. Like I said, it was not much to talk about. We just brought some extra stuff out just to make a fuller lesson. Just dealing with the tribe of Naphtali. Okay, Naphtali, wrestling so-called Argentinians to Chileans. So Lord willing, you will edify. To next thing I'm going to say, Shalom.